Shabbat Shalom, everyone. Shabbat Shalom to all of you who are joining us here at Temple Shalom, and Shabbat Shalom to all of you who are joining us on Facebook Live and on the Temple Shalom YouTube page, and for those of you who may have logged into templeshalom.com, because we know that you are in all of those places. We welcome in another beautiful Shabbat evening as we turn in our Siddur to page 128 and 129 in our prayer book Mishkan Tefillah. And we'll just mention, because I know we have some guests with us this evening, that the book goes from right to left in the Hebrew direction, so you want to follow along there. On page 128, the second song on the page, Ma Yafeh Hayom Shabbat Shalom. What a beautiful day. Today is a Shabbat of peace. Ma Yafeh Hayom Shabbat Shalom. 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 Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Right below that, the words of Yedid Nefesh. It's a love poem of Shabbat between God and the Jewish people. Heart's delight, source of mercy, the poem begins. Draw your servant into your arms. I leap like a deer to stand in awe before you. The poem is much longer than just the stanza that's here, but this is the stanza that was put to music as we lovingly get ready to welcome in Shabbat. Yedid nefesh av harachaman. Yedid nefesh av harachaman. Mishochavtecha El ritzonecha. Mishochavtecha La 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 El ritzonecha. Yarutz avtecha Kemo ayal Yishtachavei elai lai 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 el mul hadarecha. Yedid nefesh av harachaman. Yedid nefesh av harachaman. Mishochavtecha El ritzonecha. Mishochavtecha La 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 El ritzonecha. Yarutz avtecha Kemo ayal Yishtachavei elai lai La 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 El mul hadarecha. If you'll turn back in your Siddur to page 120, you will find the blessings for lighting our candles. Ellie, can I ask you to come up and light our candles? Ellie is our educational coordinator. We are about to reach the very end of our religious school year, coming up a week from Sunday, getting very, very close. 120 is where you will find the blessing.
Shabbat. Welcome, Shabbat. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat.
Thank you, thank you. We come to our Kabbalat Shabbat as we prepare to welcome Shabbat, beginning on page 130. The rabbis of old were quite wise, and they knew that we come here to the synagogue with all sorts of other stuff on our mind and need a little transition time to get ourselves ready for Shabbat. And so they gave us that transition time. About 500 or so years ago, a group of rabbis in Tzfat added this section to the service. Sections, praises of God, beginning with Psalm 95, working through a series of 6 psalms, one for each day of the week. And then Lecha Dodi, the bridge that welcomes in Shabbat. And then finally a 7th psalm, a psalm of Shabbat. And so we make our way through these psalms, beginning with Psalm 95 on page 130. Lechu neranana, come let us sing joyfully to God. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina haladonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina haladonai. Naria, naria, letzuri shenu, nikadma fana bitoda. Naria, naria, litzuri shenu, bizmirot nerialo. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina aladonai. Lechu neranina, lechu neranina, lechu neranina ladonai. As we make our way through the Psalms, you can sing them with the melodies. We'll sing in Hebrew. You can read the English. We will read a little bit of English ourselves as we make our way through. Earlier this evening, someone asked me, I won't say the name because I don't want to embarrass the person, but somebody asked me, Rabbi, is it okay for us to say all these prayers in English instead of Hebrew? What's the answer? The answer is yes. If you want the really long answer, there's a 100-page book answering that question that I wrote as my rabbinical thesis. It's in my office. It will bore you to tears, but it will give you the answer. But basically, it comes from ancient writings in the Mishnah, 1,700 years ago, or even more, 1,800 years ago, that basically there are a certain number of prayers that we must absolutely say in Hebrew. None of those prayers actually occur in the Friday evening service, and actually, unless you're in Israel, none of them actually occur in the Saturday morning service either. But why do we pray in Hebrew? Well, for a variety of reasons. One, it's a language that unites Jews all around the world. Number two, there's something very spiritual about the sound of Hebrew, about the resonance in the universe that comes from this language. And number three, even though the rabbis of the Talmud say you can pray in any language, they say you should pray in Hebrew, but if you're not good enough in the Hebrew, you can pray in English. But Maimonides, a rabbi who lived about 1,000 years ago, Maimonides said it's okay to pray in any language so long as you're certain that the person who translated the Hebrew into that other language for you is a Hebrew scholar who translated it properly, and then you're okay. That was his response about 1,000 years ago. So we continue singing in Hebrew on page 131. If you want the transliteration, it's on the left-hand side. If you want the translation, it's at the top of page 132. Psalm 96. Sing a new song to God, all the earth sing a new song. The songwriter took the first 2 lines of the psalm and reversed them. The reason she did that is because she liked how it sounded. I know that sounds like a silly answer, but I asked her myself, and that's what she told me. Shiru la Adonai, Adonai, Shir Chadash, Shiru, Shiru Ladonai, Shiru, Shiru Ladonai. Sing unto God, all the earth, a new song. I will sing unto God a new song. Sing unto God and we'll all sing along. All the earth, a new song unto God. Shiru Adonai, Kol haaretz. Shiru Adonai, Shir Kadash. At the top of page 130, or see at the bottom of 132, near the bottom, the last four lines, you see the words, Or zaru alat tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. Light is sown, like we sow seeds. Light is sown for those who are tzadikim, who are righteous people. Yishrei lev, and a person who is straightforward of heart, they will have happiness. And so if we are righteous, we will have light in our lives. And if we are good-hearted people, we will have joy in our lives. That's the message of this line of Psalm 97. Or zarua lat tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua lat tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zarua lat tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. Ul yishrei lev simcha. Or zaru alat tzadik, ul yishrei lev simcha. Ul yishrei lev simcha. Lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai 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 lai, lai lai lai. From Psalm 98, we read together at the bottom of page 133, a psalm. Sing to Adonai a new song, for God has worked wonders. God's right hand, God's holy arm has won God victory. Adonai has manifested God's victory, has displayed God's triumph in the sight of the nations. God was mindful of God's steadfast love and faithfulness toward the house of Israel. All the ends of the earth beheld the victory of our God. Raise a shout to Adonai, all the earth. Break into joyous songs of praise. We sing one of those joyous songs of praise on page 135. The last three lines of Psalm 99. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu, exalt Adonai our God. V'hishtachavu lahar kodsho, and we prostrate ourselves, we bow down at God's holy mountain. Ki kadosh Adonai, because Adonai, our God, is kadosh. Adonai, our God, is holy, which, by the way, happens to be the name of this week's Torah portion, kadoshim, or holiness. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Ki kadosh Adonai Eloheinu romemu. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. Romemu Adonai Eloheinu vehishtachavu lehar kodsho. On page 136 and 137, one last song of praises of God for God's power in the universe and the power of creation. We read together in English, and then we'll sing the last little bit together in Hebrew. A psalm of David. Ascribe to Adonai, O divine beings. Ascribe to Adonai glory and strength. Ascribe to Adonai the glory of God's name. Bow down to Adonai, majestic in holiness. The voice of Adonai is over the waters. The God of glory thunders, Adonai, over the mighty waters. The voice of Adonai is power. The voice of Adonai is majesty. The voice of Adonai breaks cedars. Adonai shatters the cedars of Lebanon. God makes Lebanon skip like a calf, Sirion like a young wild ox. The voice of Adonai kindles flames of fire. The voice of Adonai convulses the wilderness. Adonai convulses the wilderness of Kadesh. The voice of Adonai causes hinds to calf and strips forests bare. While in God's temple all say, glory. Adonai sat enthroned at the flood. Adonai sits enthroned sovereign forever. May Adonai grant strength to God's people. May Adonai bestow on God's people well-being. Those last two lines, in Hebrew, Adonai oz le'amo yitain, Adonai yivarechet amo v'shalom, the last two lines of the Hebrew. Lai, 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 Adonai oz le'amo yitain yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Adonai oz le'amo yitain yitain, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Lai 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 On page 138 and 139, we welcome in the image of the Shabbat bride, the poet Shlomo Halevi Alkabetz, who wrote this poem, had the idea in his mind that the Jewish people are the groom, Shabbat is the bride, and coming together is the wedding. This is a kind of a Kabbalistic image, and that was the image in his mind as he wrote this poem, along with, he had several ideas of messianic thoughts. He thought the Messiah was coming any day now, not that thing that those messianic churches that say they're sort of Jewish, not that thing at all, but really what today Orthodox rabbis, that's it, who believed the Messiah was coming any day now. They were off by a little bit, I think, because that was 500 years ago. But he wrote this poem with that idea in mind, that when the Jewish people and the Shabbat come together, and this is where the Kabbalistic saying comes, when, you may have heard this, when every Jewish person on the earth celebrates Shabbat together on the same day, that is the day that the Messiah will come. You can like that saying, you can not like that saying, it's okay either way, but the source of it is this Kabbalistic idea of the marriage of the Jewish people and Shabbat. We're going to sing the words of this poem, L'chadodi. We'll sing verses 1 and 2 on page 138, and then verses 5 and 9 on page 139. L'chadodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, yishmi'anu el hamyuchad. Adonai echad, Shemo echad, l'shem u'tiferet ve'letfilah. L'chadodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. L'chadodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor ha'bracha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshavat tehila. L'chadodi likrat kala, yalalai, 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 b'nei Shabbat Kabbalah Lechadoti Likrat Kala Yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat Kabbalah. Verse number 5. Hitoreri Kiva Ore Kumi Ori Uri Shir Daberi Kivod Adonai Alayich Nigla Lechadoti Likrat Kala Yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat Kabbalah Lechadoti Likrat Kala Yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat Kabbalah. We rise, we face the door as we welcome in the image of the Shabbat bride. Boi v'shalom ateret bala gam b'simcha uvtzola toch emunei am segula boi chala Lechadoti Likrat Kala Yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat Kabbalah Lechadoti Likrat Kala Yalalai 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 Bnei Shabbat Kabbalah. While you're standing, caught a couple of you. While you're standing, we just welcomed in the Shabbat bride. And since we're welcoming, let's welcome each other. Turn to the people around you. Wish them Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. And to those of you watching us online, Shabbat Shalom to all of you as well. We can all be seated as we turn to page 140 to Psalm 92, the Psalm of Shabbat that says, Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, let us sing a song for Shabbat. Tov lehodot l'Adonai, it is good to give thanks to God. Ulezamer lashimcha elyon, and to sing of God's name most high. Mizmor Shir Liyom HaShabbat, Tov lehodot l'Adonai. Ulizamer lashimcha elyon, ulizamer lashimcha elyon. Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai. Ulizamer lashimcha elyon, ulizamer lashimcha elyon. Lahagid baboker chastecha, ve'emunatecha ba'leilot. Alei asor ve'aleina ve'lalei higayon ve'chinor. Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai. Ulizamer leshimcha elyon, ulizamer leshimcha elyon. Ki simachtani Adonai b'fo'olecha. B'maaseh yadecha aranim, ma gadlu ma'asecha Adonai, me'od amchu machshvotecha. Mizmor shir liyom hashabbat, tov lehodot la'Adonai. Ulizamer leshimcha elyon, ulizamer leshimcha elyon. Ulizamer leshimcha elyon. As we move from our Kabbalat Shabbat to our Mariv service, from our receiving Shabbat into our evening service, we turn to page 144 for Chatzi Kaddish. Yitgada v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, Yalmad yivrach Yerutev yamlich malchutei, V'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chayei dechol Beit Yisrael ba'agala ba'agala uv'izman kariv yimeru Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevarach le'alam lo me'amaya, yitbarach, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitale, v'yitalal, shemi d'kudasha, b'richu le'ela min kol berchata, v'shirata, tushbechata, v'nechemata, damiron be'alma, v'yimeru. Amen. We rise, page 146, for the words of Baruch Hu, our invitation to prayer. Lai 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 Baruch Hu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed, HaMevorach, HaMevorach Le'olam va'ed. We can all be seated. We read together at the top of page 149, giving thanks for creation. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. Your wisdom sets the way on which time and season glide. Your breath guides the sail of the stars. Creator of the tide of time and light, you guide the current of day into night. As heaven spans to infinity, you set its course for eternity. Praise to you, Adonai our God, from whom the evening flows. On page 148, the last three lines. El Chai V'Kayam Tamid Yimloch Aleinu Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'ma'ari Aravim. Lai 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 lai. Page 150. We give thanks for the words of Torah. We say, Ahavat Olam, with an eternal love, Beit Yisrael Amcha, of your people Israel, that you love. You gave us the Torah and its mitzvot, the Torah and its commandments. Chukim u'mishpatim, its laws and its statutes. Otanu lamadita, you taught them to us. You gave them to us so that they might, as we say, 4 lines from the bottom, 5 lines from the bottom. Ki him chayenu v'orech yameinu, because these words, they are our life and they are the length of our days. They guide us on our pathway through life. Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Amcha ahavta, Amcha ahavta. Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu limadita, otanu limadita. Al kein Adonai Eloheinu b'shokvenu v'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha u'v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed. חיינו ואורך ימינו ובהם נהגי יומם ולילה נהגי יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל אוהב עמו ישראל Page 152 and 153, we join together in the words of Shema. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed 154 Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha B'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha Ve'hayu הדברים האלה אשר אנוכי מצווך היום על לבביך ושיננתם לבניך ודיברת בם בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך, והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך, וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך, ובשעריך, למען תזכרו, ועשיתם את כל מצוותי, והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם, אני Adonai Elohechem, Asher Hotzeiti Etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, Liot Lachem Le'Elohim, Ani Adonai Elohechem, Adonai Elohechem Emet. We read together a translation, a little bit poetic, but a translation of those words on page 155. Love your God with every heartbeat, with every breath, with every conscious act. Keep in mind the words I command you today. Teach them to your children. Talk about them at work, whether you are tired or you are rested. Let them guide the work of your hands. Keep them in the forefront of your vision. Do not leave them at the doorway of your house or outside your gate. They are reminders to do all of my mitzvot, so that you can be holy for God. I am Adonai your God. I led you out of Egypt to become your God. I am Adonai your God. We come to the Geulah, our prayer of redemption, redemption from Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim in Hebrew means Egypt, but it also means the narrow places. We are redeemed in our history from Egypt, and in our modern lives redeemed from those things that enslave us, those physical things, those psychological things, those sociological things that enslave us each and every day. And indeed, today we still have human slavery, and so we ask for freedom for those who are still physically enslaved as well. We read together responsively at the bottom of page 157. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth. The high heavens declare your glory. The earth reveal your justice. From bondage in Egypt we were redeemed. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way. Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed. And as our ancestors sang at the sea, we sing as well, page 158. Who is like you, O God, among the gods that are worshipped? Who is like you, majestic in holiness, awesome in splendor, working wonders? We sing together, Micha Mocha. Yai lai lai la lai 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 lai. Yai lai lai la lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 yai lai 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 lai. Micha Mocha ba'elim Adonai. Micha Mocha ne'edar ba'kodesh. Torah tehilot osei fele. Torah tehilot osei fele. Malachutecha ra'u vanecha. Lokei hayam lifnei Moshe u'Miriam. Ze Eli anu ve'amru. Ze Eli anu ve'amru. Adonai lo le'olam va'ed. Adonai lo le'olam va'ed. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. Yai lai 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 lai. V'nemar kifod Adonai et Yaakov. Ugolo miyad chazak mimenu. Baruch atah Adonai, Goal Yisrael. On page 160, we ask God to lie us down in peace, cause us to rise again tomorrow to life, to spread a shelter of peace over us, to protect us as we sleep from enemy and illness and war, from famine and sorrow and wrongdoing, to watch our going and our coming for us, for Jerusalem, and for all the world. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. 6 lines from the bottom of 160. Ushmor tzitenu uvoinu l'chaim u'shalom mitzavi adolam. Lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 lai. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom. V'hamidenu shomreinu l'chaim. Shomreinu l'chaim. Lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai lai la lai 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 la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Page 162. The people of Israel will keep Shabbat. Observing Shabbat in every generation is a covenant for always. Shabbat is a sign between me and the people of Israel, God said, because in 6 days God made heaven and the earth, And on the seventh day, God ceased from all of the work, and God refreshed God's soul. As on the seventh day, we cease from all the work and refresh our souls. Top of page 162. Veshameru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat la'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam b'ni uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim ve'et haaretz u'v'yom hashvi'i shavat shavat vayinafash shavat shavat vayinafash v'shameru shavat Shavat vayinafash, v'shameru shavat, shavat vayinafash, v'shameru shavat, shavat vayinafash. As we turn to page 164, in a moment we'll rise for the Amidah. The prayers begin on page 164 and run through page 180 and 181. We'll sing together the Zimun, or the meditation, here on 164, and then on all of the even pages, for the next 3 even pages, we'll sing together the first 3 paragraphs of the Amidah. It's always good to remind ourselves of what this section of the service is. Any of you who've taken my class on the Amidah will know these words, and any of you who have not taken my class on the Amidah, shame on you for not taking my class on the Amidah. But the idea is this. We've been building up in the service to this moment because this is the moment that is our communal time face-to-face with God, and also our individual time face-to-face with God. And so the prayer is part communal and part individual. There are 19 blessings during the week that make up this section, 3 blessings to begin with that are praises of God, 13 blessings in the middle that are requests of God, and 3 blessings at the end that are thank yous to God, making up 19 blessings. On Shabbat, and on holidays as well, but on Shabbat we remove the middle 13 and replace them with an extended blessing for Shabbat. 7's a good Shabbat number, right? So 3 blessings of praise for God, a blessing of Shabbat in the middle, and 3 blessings of thanksgiving to God at the end, making 7 blessings for Shabbat. After we say the out loud communal part together, we'll take time for our own prayers. You can read the Hebrew that's on the even numbered pages. You can read the translation of the Hebrew on the even numbered pages as well. You can read the poetic renditions on the thoughts and messages behind those prayers on the odd numbered pages, not translations, but poetry, rabbinic thought, rabbinic teaching, etc., on the themes of the prayers. And then when you've finished your own silent prayer all the way through 180 and 181, you can be seated. Another conversation from earlier tonight. What happens if the official words that are in the prayer book don't speak to you? Can I let you all in on a secret? It's very secret, so don't tell anybody, especially the people that are watching online, and especially the people that can look this up on Facebook Live for the next 100 years that it's going to be there. Sometimes when I say the Amidah, I skip some of the prayers. Are you shocked? The rabbi skips some of the prayers. Why? Because sometimes, not every time, but sometimes, because sometimes one of those prayers in the middle it just grabs my attention. And I have to stay there because that moment is so meaningful to me that I'd rather stay and contemplate and think and ponder and meditate and pray on that thought than continue on to the end. And guess what? If you do that, it's okay. If you pray words that are not in the prayer book, but when you pray those words, you point your heart in the direction of God, those prayers count too. The prayers that the rabbis of old put in the prayer book, we have them, and we've changed them over the many centuries, not just the Reform movement or the Conservative movement or the Orthodox movement, but Jews all over the world in all sorts of different denominations and countries and communities have changed the words here and there. But we all begin the exact same way. So when we finish our out loud prayer, take your time for your prayer, the Hebrew on the page, the English on the page, or those thoughts and prayers and meditations that you find within your own heart. And if we listen to the rabbis of old, your heart is located exactly right here because they tied this heart with this heart. Whenever the rabbis wrote in the Talmud and in the commentaries on the Talmud, they were talking about what's in your heart physically, what's in your heart spiritually, and what also is in your mind, physically and spiritually together. So let us rise, and we'll join together on page 164. We'll pray together, and then take some time for our own silent prayer. Adonai sifatai tiftach, ufi agid tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. 166. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu v'Elohei avotenu v'imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, v'Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, v'Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'konei HaKol, V'zocher Chasdei Avot V'imahot, Umevi Geula Livnei V'nehem, L'man Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham V'ezrat Sarah. 168. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol Atah Rav Lehoshia, Morid Hatal, Mechalkel Chayim Bechesed, Mechayeh HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim Verofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem emunato lishenei afar micha mocha ba'al givurot umido melach melech memit umechayeh umatzmiach Yeshua v'ne'eman natalach hayot hakol baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hakol. 170. Atah kadosh u'shimcha kadosh u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai ha'el hakadosh. We continue silently through 180, 181. When you're finished with your silent prayer, please be seated. Middle of page 180. Yehiyu l'ratzon imre fi ve'hegion libi lifanecha Adonai Suri Vigoali Adonai Suri Vigoali. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart, may they all be acceptable unto you, Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. Adonai, my rock and my redeemer. You l'ratzon imre fi ve'hegion libi lifanecha Adonai Suri Vigoali Adonai Suri Vigoali. We turn our thoughts to those who are in need of healing. We turn in our Siddur to page 371. In the middle of the page, you'll find our Mishaberach L'Cholim, our prayer for asking God to bring healing. As I read the list that I have here, for those of you who are with us virtually, you can either say names for healing. If you have any names to add to our list, you can say them out loud where you are, or you can type them into the chat box, I should say, on whatever platform you're joining us. And for those of us in the room, if when I finish with the list here, if you have additional names that you'd like to add, we'll take those names as well. We ask for God to bring refuah shlema, complete healing, for Carrie Schillinger, Robert Oppenheim, Yishav Zaza, Carrie Susser, Brian Zabel, Ruvain ben Sipora, Chaim Mordechai ben Shmuel Yissaschar, Moshe ben Avraham, Avram ben Meir, Judy Bauman, Avram ben Odul, Evan Burnett, Ellen McIntosh, John Redmond Palmer, William Redmond Palmer, Molly Delaney, Beverly Bellin, Calvin Waxman, Nee Howard, Yaakov ben Moshe Halevi, Susan Perry, Paltiela bat Mordechai Vasha, Amy Sutton, Jessica Lee Fletcher. Do you have any other names that anybody would like to add to our list for healing? Anita? Thank you. Any others on this side of the room? On this side of the room, names for healing? Thank you. Any others? Thank you. Any others? May God bring all those that we have named and all those that are in need, all those who suffer anywhere in our world from the COVID-19 virus. There's still millions suffering. We ask for healing for all of them as well. In the middle of 371, we join together in the words of our Misha Berach prayer. Misha Berach Avoteinu Mikor HaBracha Le'aimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishe Berach Imotenu Mekor HaBracha Le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen. As I mentioned near the beginning of our service, this week our Torah portion is called Kiddushim. Kiddushim means holiness. And chapter 19, which is in the middle of Parashat Kiddushim, which is actually the section we're going to be reading tomorrow morning in our triennial cycle. We'll be reading from chapter 19. It's often referred to as the Holiness Code. What is the Holiness Code? It's how you and I should be holy. It talks about the ideas of how we interact with each other. Chapter 19 begins with an idea that says, when you are in judgment, judge fairly. Do not take too much pity upon the poor person. Do not give too much deference to the rich person. And when you judge, judge in righteousness. It also says in this chapter, love your neighbor as yourself. And then a few sentences later it says, do not hate your neighbor in your heart. It's interesting, judge in righteousness. It doesn't say judge in truth. It doesn't say judge in law. It says judge in righteousness. And a lot of the rabbinic commentators throughout the ages believe that this sentence is geared toward actual judges and actual juries and grand juries and panels of judges and whatever there may be and wherever we live in the world. But it's right in the middle of a whole bunch of things about how we treat other people. So I tend to think that it's about how we not only judge from a legal perspective, but also how we judge others just in a personal perspective as well. And it says, when you judge, judge in righteousness. What does that mean? There's a wonderful Hasidic parable that explains this, I think, better than anything I've ever heard. So there's this Hasidic Rebbe, right? And this woman comes to him. It's right before Shabbat. And she says, Rabbi, is this chicken kosher? I need to know. And his students are there with him, and he inspects the chicken. The chicken clearly has been sick for a while. It's got blotches and splotches all over it. He cuts the chicken open and looks, and there's the inner organs have tumors on them, and it's quite a mess of a chicken. And he looks in her eyes, he shakes his head, and he says, yes, this is a kosher chicken. And he hands her back the chicken and sends her away. Almost immediately, another woman comes up and she says, Rabbi, is this chicken kosher? It's Friday afternoon. I need to make dinner for my family for Shabbat. And he looks at the woman and he looks at the chicken, and his students are watching very carefully because they look a little confused. And he looks at the chicken. This may be the most beautiful chicken he's ever seen in his entire life. It was grown on a farm by a chicken rancher who is clearly gifted in how he raises chickens. The chicken is beautiful. He takes a look at the chicken. He pulls some feathers off. There is not one blemish on this chicken. He cuts the chicken open. He inspects the lung and the liver and the kidney. They are absolutely smooth with no blemishes whatsoever. He even cuts open the lung and the liver, and he looks on the inside of them, which, by the way, is, if you've ever heard the term kosher lemahadrin, it's even more kosher than glatt kosher. You have to inspect the insides of all of the inside organs to make sure that they're okay, and they're as smooth and as perfect as can be. And he hands the chicken back to this woman, and he says, the chicken is not kosher, you need to get a different chicken. And she says, thank you, and she leaves. And the students look and they say, Rabbi, how is this possible? Are you feeling okay? Are you confused? Something is wrong with you. Maybe we should call the doctor because you're clearly confused. The rabbi said, I'm not confused at all. This was a very simple question. It was irrelevant how the chicken looked. My ruling was based on the eyes of these two women. I looked into the eyes of the first woman, and I know her family very, very well. They've been in our community for a long time. They have no money. They have next to nothing. They live in a little shack on the edge of town. They have not had chicken for their Shabbat dinner in more than 4 months, and they have saved little pennies here and little pennies there so that for the first time in 4 months, they might eat some meat, some chicken on Shabbat. If I told her that the chicken was not kosher, all of the money that they saved for the last 4 months have been wasted, and it'll be another 4 months before they can have chicken to enjoy for their Shabbat dinner. And for the next 4 months, there will be no joy on Shabbat in their home. And so for her, that chicken is kosher. The second woman, I looked in her eyes, and I know her well as well. Their family have been members of our community for a very long time also. They are quite wealthy, and it's no big deal for them to get another chicken. But I saw in her eyes the worry. I happen to know she has out-of-town guests this Shabbat. And the out-of-town guests are very, very important people to her. And I saw the worry in her eyes that the chicken was not going to live up to the standard of being kosher enough for her guests, and she would spend the entire Shabbat worrying about the chicken, and that worry would rub off onto her family. And everyone in the family would be worried for Shabbat, and Shabbat would be ruined for her family. So for her, who I know can go, and it's no big deal for her to afford to go buy another chicken, that chicken was not kosher. The next one she buys will be. This is judgment in tzedek, judgment in righteousness, and not judgment in law. Clearly, by Jewish law, the first chicken wasn't even close to being kosher. And clearly, the second chicken, every kosher butcher would love to sell that chicken over and over and over again. But those facts didn't matter. Sometimes facts matter, but sometimes people matter more than facts. And for the first woman, her chicken was kosher. And for the second woman, her chicken wasn't kosher. Because what mattered more than whether or not the chicken was kosher was whether or not they were going to have a joyful Shabbat. Because a joyful Shabbat is far more important than the status of a piece of chicken. Because it's just a piece of chicken. It's not the joy that someone can have in their heart from Shabbat. The Torah portion tells us when you judge in righteousness. Sometimes it's important that we judge in what the legal standard is for a particular thing. But other times, it's important that we judge in righteousness, that we judge in a way that is the right way to judge for that particular person in that particular time. I believe that's really true in a courtroom. I believe that's really true in a family room. I believe that's really true in an office or out on the street with a stranger, or even by ourselves. When we judge, we should always strive for that highest level. Yes, there are laws we need to protect. Yes, there are societal and family standards that we need to protect. But the most important thing that we need to protect is our own soul and someone else's soul. And when we judge in righteousness, that's how we protect a soul. May we all walk through life as we all judge, because we all do. May we all judge in righteousness. Ken Yehi Ratzon, may this be God's will. We are going to turn in our prayer books to the counting of the Omer. The Omer is the period of time that is between the holiday of Pesach and the holiday of Shavuot. And on page 570, you will find the blessings for counting of the Omer, this 49-day or 7-week period between the holiday of Pesach and the holiday of Shavuot. And let me just see. And on 570, we say, Hineni muchan mezuman, hineni muchan mezuman, hineni muchan mezuman, lekayem mitzvah aseh shel sfirat haomer. I'm ready to fulfill the commandment of counting the Omer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sfirat haomer. Praised are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the universe, who makes us holy with your commandments and commands us to count the Omer. Hayom 21 yom shehem shalosh shvuot laomer. Today is the 21st, as the sun goes down tonight. Today is the 21st day. That is 3 weeks of the Omer. We continue as we turn to page 586 as we rise for Aleinu, the bottom of the page. Aleinu l'shabeach ladon hakol, latet gedula liyotzeh bereshit, shelo asanu kol goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpechot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkeinu kahem, v'gor aleinu kechol hamonam, v'anachnu korim, umishtachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamalachim hakadosh baruch hu shehu notei shamayim veyoser haaretz umoshav yikaro bashamayim mima'al ushchinatu zo begove meromim hu Eloheinu einod emet malkeinu efes ulato Kakatu b'torato v'yadata hayom v'hashevota elevavecha ki Adonai hu Elohim b'shamayim mima'al ve'al haaretz mitachat ein od, the middle of 590. Ki ha'malchut shelcha hi olam yatim loch bechavod kakatu b'toratecha Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed v'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yeh Adonai echad ushemo echad ushemo echad. We can all be seated. As we turn to page 598 in our Siddur, we come to Kaddish Yatom, the mourner's Kaddish. In our yard sites this week, we honor the memories of Esther Rosenzweig, Herman Harris, Molly Moore, Rabbi Melvin Glazer, Ruth Hilton, Frida Werner, Henry Clausen, Morris Siegel, Moshe Penz, Richard Melman, George Hawley, Isidore Buckstein, Joseph Morris, Leon Obadov, Luba Gendelev, Jenny Litvak, Mikhail Blanter, Mildred Pessis, Hananya Keslasi, Marjorie Leonard, Alan Getoff, Alan Israel, and Phineas Bernstein. We are also in the period of Shiva for Marvin Strait, and we also mark the recent passing of our member Maxine Ringelheim. Additionally, the passing on Wednesday evening of Sylvia Chook, the mother of Marlene Rothside. The funeral will be in Arizona on Sunday, and there will be a Shiva Minyan at the Rothside home on Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. For Maxine Ringelheim, spoken with her family, and the family is having private services. If there's any other information forthcoming, we'll let everybody know. Are there any other yard sites that anyone is observing this week? Thank you. Any others? Yehu zichronam levracha, may their memories be an eternal blessing. We ask mourners to rise and those whose custom it is to stand with them, as in their memory we sanctify God's name. Page 598. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, be'alma divra chirute v'amlich malchute, v'chayechon uv'yomechon uv'chaye d'chol beit Israel, ba'agala uv'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehe shmei rabbah mevorach la'olam l'olmei almaya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yit'aleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudusha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, d'amiran be'alma v'yimru amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Oseh shalom b'imrumav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. We can all be seated. Just a few quick announcements for all of us. This upcoming Sunday is Mother's Day, so there's no religious school. Tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m., we begin our Shabbat morning service. We'll be reading from Parashat Kedoshim from the Torah tomorrow morning. Tonight, we would like to thank Lisa Sherwood. I know my name's on the list too, but I didn't do anything. Lisa did all of it. So we'd like to thank Lisa for hosting our pre-neg before services, as well as the wonderful food that's still remaining from that we'll get to eat during our oneg Shabbat celebration afterwards. So thank you, Lisa, for all your work for all of that. Tomorrow morning, our Bagel Brigade gets started again for the first time since the first week of March 2020. We will have the Bagel Brigade luncheon at the end of our Shabbat services, so please do join us for that. And if you're interested in joining a Bagel Brigade, please let us know. It's about once a month that you bring one dish and help serve lunch to all the folks that are there. Next, the following Sunday, on Sunday the 15th, many things happening. Number one, it is the last day of religious school, so we'll be celebrating with all of our religious school students. Number two, it is the congregational meeting. We need all of you to be there because we're voting on the new officers for the board, new members of the board, financial reports, rabbis' reports, executive directors' reports, all the stuff that you need to know that gets voted on and approved at our annual meeting. So please be there on May 15th. Kobe Humash's class is continuing on for those who are taking on Tuesday evenings. I think there's 6 or 8 more sessions, I think. Four more? About 4 more sessions, maybe 3, maybe 5. We'll ask Kobe how many sessions are left, but it's a great class. I've heard wonderful things from the students, so that continues on. Please note that over the summertime, the monthly men's clubs programs go on vacation, but they'll be coming back with some wonderful speakers and programs in the fall. Additionally, for those of you, we have several in the room who are interested in conversion, our new conversion program is going to be getting started up in the early part of the summer, so watch your email. And if you don't think I have your email, send me another one, and then you'll be at the top of my email list, so we'll be good there. But going to be starting up in just another few weeks as we go into the month of June is when it's going to be starting, so we'll get you all started with that. Check the temple calendar for other information that you need to know for things going on over the summer. We will be starting in June with our second Friday night of the month, Shabbat in the park at various parks around the city. If you've never been to one, you don't know what you're missing. And if you have been to one, you know what all those people are missing. Because we have bring your picnic dinner, and we have a great time in various parks around town. And a year in advance warning, the beginning of June 2023 will be the next Temple Shalom trip to Israel. So if you'd like to join us on that trip, it's good. The dates will be announced in about 1 month from now. We're finalizing the dates and the itinerary. So if you want to join Lisa and me in Israel in June of 2023, now is the time to start saving. Put a little bit of money away each and every month so you can join us for that. The Temple Calendar Online, your monthly bulletin, and the Tuesday notices have all the information you need to know about everything that's going on at Temple Shalom. So please check all of them. When we finish, we'll say Shabbat Shalom to all of our online folks. Our virtual folks are with us. And the rest of us will make a little Kiddush and Motzi in the social hall. And we will then have a few more munchies because there's more stuff from our pre-nig that becomes our Oneg Shabbat. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. You can remain on 598 because the words we're going to sing are the last 3 lines on page 598. Oh, say Shalom bimromah. Yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru